Hello, and welcome to the Mommy Escape Time podcast. I am Lauren, your host, and I have a 1-year-old son. I started this podcast for any mother who might feel alone in their journey through motherhood. Becoming a mom is hard no matter how you get there, and this podcast is about the mom stuff that comes up in our lives. Listen, enjoy, and connect with us on the Mommy Escape Time podcast. Hello, and welcome to the Mommy Escape Time podcast. I am Lauren, your host, and it is just me today. I am randomly recording these episodes when I have time. Sometimes I start them and I have to stop in the middle of them to take care of my son, and then I come back to them a little later. So that's why I can't really have anyone on with me. And I'll kind of walk through why it's so hard, but I'm sure if you are in quarantine, you can understand getting time to yourself is a challenge. So I don't really know what this episode is. This is like a random bunch of facts or information that I am throwing together. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do a podcast every week, but I'm going to try. So we will see. My school district has decided that we are going to get tomorrow, Good Friday, off, and Monday and Tuesday, and that is our break, our spring break this year. Granted, it's not like anyone can go anywhere, so who cares anyways? But I'm very glad that I do not have to do lesson plans and teach for a whole 3 days. I'm just not going to even turn on my computer or anything. So I am kind of excited about that. It's a lot of work. It's so much more work to do everything from home and do everything through email and these Google Meets. So a break is definitely necessary, especially since we have not had any break at all from teaching since February. And we only had a long weekend. So it's hard to go 2 months with literally no break. And it's not like you can call in a sick day or take a personal day at this point. You have to work no matter what. So it's a challenge sometimes as a teacher to work that long, because in the fall you have all these days off, and every month you have at least one day off. So that kind of gets you through. But then once you hit January, it's like you have one day off in January, 1 or 2 days off in February, and then you go all the way until your April break until you have a day off. And that is a long stretch of time. And I never understood why they did that, because everyone gets sick, and not just pandemic sick, but everyone is sick during that time, and everyone has to take time off because they get sick at that time. So we'll see. Maybe this will change how everything goes, but let's see. What can I randomly talk about? There were some things I was thinking about that I could talk about. So one of them is obviously we're all stuck at home, right? So there's things that a lot of the podcasts that I listen to, it's like teams of people, and a lot of times now it's the husband and wife. And we might be able to get my husband and I to do a podcast here or there during this pandemic. But it's funny listening to podcasts now, because you can tell people have been together in the house, or they're definitely people who are not together in the house, and they're just so excited to talk, even though it's on a podcast. So that's really funny. I will say that I belong to 2 Patreon subscriptions. So Patreon is you pay a certain podcast and they put out special content for you. I will never do that. It's not my thing. It's hard enough for me to get out 1 podcast a week, and these people put out 4 or 5. But you're paying for that content, and then that money goes to whoever that podcast is so they can use it. So a lot of Disney and travel podcasts right now are doing that because they need to make money. Because they're making $0 right now. They're still working, but they're making $0 because no one is actually traveling to Disney World, so they're not making any money off of any of the trips that no one is planning. So one of the things that I'm seeing on Patreon is that I follow, there's this one podcast, WDW Prep School to Go, and the host is Shannon, and she has her associate Heather, and they have these funny chats all the time, and so that's what keeps me going. I have to earn listening to those, though. I have to be out walking while my son is asleep, or I have to be doing some sort of yard work or something in order for that to happen. But pretty much it's only when my son is asleep that I can listen to those anyways. And then I listen to the Diz, another Disney one. There's a bunch of people on that podcast, so different people put up different postings, different times. So that's, again, I save those for like walk times and things like that. I can't listen to them all the time. Um, so, but it's funny to see like how people are together. Like some people are obviously together all the time. So it's funny how the different reactions are of people, and you could tell that I don't want to say that they're like gruff with each other, but they're maybe a little more playful and a little more, they're just funnier together because they've been together for so much time that I think everyone needs a break from everyone that they're living in their house with, probably. So, and one of the things is my husband's gonna kill me, but so he and I, how do I explain this? So I do all the cooking, and my husband does not really. He can do certain things. We make a joke like that he makes the frozen pizza tonight, like he's cooking dinner tonight, and whatnot. So, one of the things that I was like, just can you make our son a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? And my husband and I, who knew like how different a person could make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? We get kind of like thicker bread, so I normally just make like one slice of bread and I don't fold it over because I just think it's like too much food for my son to actually chew, especially with the crust. It's kind of like a harder crust. It's like a hearty Italian bread that we get. So it's when my husband makes a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Oh, I guess I should start with me. I shouldn't start with him. I'll start when I make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I like really spread on the peanut butter, like it's thicker and things like that. And then I put on like a little bit of jelly. And I have special jelly that I go to Whole Foods to buy. And it's like, I don't want to say it's ridiculous expensive, but it's like $4 or $5 a jar. So yeah, it is kind of ridiculously expensive when you think about it. And I'll buy like, 6 or 7 of those for like 6 months. And I remember at like one point, I was like, wow, we're going through this jelly so fast. I'm like, I don't understand. Like, I'm barely using any. So, my husband made my son a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, in which the peanut butter, there were even parts of the sandwich that you could still see the sandwich because there wasn't peanut butter. It was so thin. And then my husband took like at least 3 tablespoons of jelly out and put it on the bread. And I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, you cannot put that much jelly on the sandwich. I'm like, that's so much jelly. I'm like, you can't even see the peanut butter. It was so thick. Oh, it was so, to me, it was just so gross. So, and my husband, of course, snapped at me a little bit because he was like, just let me make the sandwich. And all I could see is I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, that's like $3 of jelly you just used on our child's sandwich, in which half of it isn't even going to make it in his mouth because it's all going to be falling off and it's just going to be everywhere. So I just thought it was so funny that how different my husband and I make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And obviously, if my husband's making it for himself, I really don't care, like, whatever. Of course, now we have like Dollar Jelly. It's like store brand because that's all we can buy. And I'm not going to Whole Foods whatsoever in anytime soon. Um, so I am, it's just kind of funny that that's how we make our sandwiches and that they're so different. So I told my husband he can make his sandwich however he wants for himself, but for our son, he cannot have that much jelly. First of all, that's a ridiculous amount of sugar for our son. And the whole point of the peanut butter and jelly sandwich is so my son can get the protein, not so he can have more like sweet foods in his mouth. So, and that really made me think of it because I'm really trying to plan out our meals better because I would say for the last 3 weeks, it's just been very random. And that day I kind of like pick and choose. And now I'm back to we have like a whiteboard in our kitchen and I'm trying at least every other day to cook something. And it can be very basic or not, but at least it's something every day. And I just really want to make sure that I have a plan because, when you have to go grocery shopping every 2 weeks, that's what you need to do. And I would love to use Instacart or Peapod or whatever you can to get groceries delivered in our area. It is no longer a possibility. I guess if I woke up at 4 a.m., possibly it would be a possibility, but all our delivery times are always full. And I have this weird feeling that, I don't want to take a time away from someone who really needs it. Like someone who really can't go to the store, I feel like they should be using it. And I'm trying to, like, if it's available, I will obviously take a slot, but I'll only look during the day. I'm not going to wake up at a special time. I feel like there are some people that, that's their only option is to do this. And that's not my only option. Like, first of all, we do have plenty of food for at least 2 weeks. So I'm not too concerned. And I just don't want to take advantage of not letting people who really need the service to use the service. So, and it's kind of crazy. I went to Costco. I went to Costco last week. And I remember on Thursday, like I was starting to have anxiety about having to go to Costco. Like I did not want to go. And the only reason I went is that back in February, when I knew this was coming, but we didn't know exactly when all of this was going to come down, I was like, okay, they said you need 2 weeks worth of food. So I'm like, I'll get 3 weeks worth of food and like stockpile it in our basement. And that's what I did. And my son has pouches. He has pouches at least 4 times. He has 4 pouches a day, which I know is probably ridiculous, but especially in times like this where I don't have options for fresh fruit every day, at least I know he's getting some sort of fruit every day. And he is really teething badly right now. So he definitely needs that comfort of that mushy food. So I just, it is what it is. So whatever. So I bought 4 boxes for this situation and I just put them down there and I bought pasta and I bought canned tomatoes so I could make sauce for pasta and paper towels, toilet paper, and Clorox wipes, and like, I don't know, like 1 or 2 other things, just so I knew I wouldn't have to go to the store anymore. And this was back in February. Like, I would say the middle of February, I did this. I knew it was coming. I didn't know when it was coming. We really thought it wasn't going to be a thing until April here. But living in Connecticut and living right outside of we don't live right outside of New York, but Connecticut is next to New York City. And so I think that's why it traveled so fast in our area. But I remember I was just like, oh, okay, well, I should go to Costco and get this stuff. So, like, I remember I went to Costco back in February and it was already pretty crazy. You already couldn't get latex gloves. You could not get masks. And I remember trying to buy masks on Amazon and it was like $8. I was like, perfect, I'll buy that, like for 50 masks. But then the shipping was $250, or sometimes it was $2,000 for shipping, which obviously I did not do. So, when I had to go to Costco this past week, it was for pouches because we were running low on pouches. And honestly, we just can't be without them right now. My son needs them. So I was literally going for those pouches. And there were like 2 eggs I was looking for. And there's this mozzarella cheese that my son loves too. And I got that. And I got 2 rotisserie chickens to cut up and freeze. So those were my items that I got. And I went that morning, and Thursday night I was already like having anxiety about it. Like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to go to the store and I'm going to have to do this and I'm going to have to change and I'm going to have to make sure I leave at this time so I can get in. And I don't want to go too early because I know that that's for the high risk population. So I don't want to go like right when they open, but I don't want to go too late. So technically, I guess they open at 10, but I have no idea what time they open because it seemed like the parking lot was jam-packed full when I got there on Friday. And my goal is I had my Costco card and my credit card and my key, and that's all I was going to bring in because I didn't want to touch my phone. I didn't want to touch anything really while I was in there. And I had a change of clothes for right inside our door where our washing machine is for when I got home to change into. And I was actually going to take off all my clothes in the laundry room and then run upstairs and shower. Well, wash my hands, run upstairs and shower, and then change. And I wanted to do that all when I did not have my son. Obviously, I was not going to bring my son to Costco for any reason. So last Friday, I went there I wanted to get there a little bit before 10 because they just changed the laws in Connecticut like Thursday night about what it was going to be like to shop in the grocery store, and they were limiting people and all this stuff, and I didn't really know how it was going to work out. So when I got there, the parking lot was so full. I was like, oh my gosh. So I parked on the side, which luckily I did because there was a line outside to get in because they were only allowing a certain number of people in. And once, then you had to wait until someone left in order to let someone else in. Now, I want you to know it was 40 degrees out. It was downpour raining, and there's only so much covering that Costco has. So some people were standing outside in downpouring rain because that was your option, because they also had tape set up so that you had to be 6 feet apart. So luckily when I got into line, it was not horrible, but I would say I waited outside for 10 minutes, and the guy, some people were wearing masks, some people were not. I was not wearing a mask. So I just, when it was finally, I had to wait for someone to come out. I actually, when it was my turn, I waited a full 3 minutes before someone left, before I could get in. So that was the part that I was the coldest. And I was actually standing right next to the worker, 2 feet away. He was like, whatever. He's like, we're all getting it. So he's like, I'd rather just get it and get it over with at this point. And I was like, okay, well, whatever. So then when I finally did get in, it wasn't too crowded. I think what surprised me is how many people were in electronics or buying clothes, or I think people were in the book section trying to get stuff for Easter. But there were a lot of people there. And when I went in, I just went straight to where the pouches were, because I was like, if they don't have the pouches, I'm leaving. What is the point of all of this? So I hightailed it right over to the pouches, and they did have them, not a ton like they normally do. And they definitely were not on sale. But they were $3 less than they were on Instacart. So that, I didn't realize how much the markup was for Instacart for those. So that was kind of interesting. So they're $10 a box for 28, and a box lasts us about a week. So I bought 8 boxes because I was like, I'm not doing this again. I can't do this again. I never want to have to do this again. So I bought 8 boxes of the pouches, and there were definitely leftovers, and there was no limit on them. So I didn't feel bad about that. And then I went and got the other stuff. I will say the grocery part was more crowded. I wanted to get a few other things, but it wasn't worth it. I don't know if anyone has been to a Costco, but it's very, there's a refrigerated section where you can walk in. And I really wanted to get this kale salad mix. It's my absolute favorite, but there were too many people waiting in line just to get in. I don't really understand how it was all working to get in there. And I just wanted to get in and out of that store as fast as humanly possible. I just did not want to be in that store. And everyone was pretty good about keeping social distancing. I really wanted to get some prepared foods, but I'm so nervous to get any prepared food. I'm not there. We haven't gotten takeout from anywhere. We went to Arby's one time in these 4 weeks, and that is it. And I've literally cooked, or we have had leftovers every single night. And tomorrow, we actually are going to get takeout, which I'll talk about in a second. So when I left Costco, the checkout actually wasn't very crowded either. It went very quickly. And then I got to my car and loaded it up and left. And I had hand sanitizer in the car, so I put that on my hands and put it on the steering wheel, and I had Clorox wipes also, and I wiped down everything in the car. And then when I got home, I took off my shoes, and I brought everything in, and then my husband put it where it was supposed to go in the house. And then I took off my clothes and went upstairs and showered, and we set the washer up right away. So all in all, a trip that normally takes me about 45 minutes took me about 2 hours and 15 minutes. And granted, yes, all of us have as much time in the world to do things now, but it was still a lot. There's no need. I will never go to Costco again until the ban is lifted, unless I have to get more pouches. I am hoping that if we're in week 4, that I do not need to, it will not be like this for 8 more weeks. 12 weeks would be a long time to be like this. So I am hoping that, they say it's going to peak around here next week, or the week after. So I am hopeful that that is true and that will happen. So tomorrow is Friday, and tomorrow is my husband and my our first date anniversary. And this was going to be the first year that my husband and I were going to get to celebrate and actually go to the place where we met. And of course, now we can't do that. So for 7 years, we have not been able to get back there. My husband has always had to work. It's never worked out. It's always been like a weird date, and we've never been able to do it. And this year, I finally was going to have the day off from school, and we were going to work it out, and we were going to go. So it's a little disappointing, I've been since our school year calendar came out last year. I was like, oh my gosh, we're actually going to get to go back to our first date place, which is nowhere near where we live right now. So it's actually kind of, I don't want to say it's a trek, but I mean, it's like 45 minutes away from where we live. So it's not as easy as, like, oh, we're just going to go do it today. It does take some planning, especially with a child. Um, so it's a little disappointing that we're not going to get to do that. So we're going to get takeout from a random restaurant around here, to support some of our local restaurants. And that's it. That's all we're going to do. My big grand plans of everything that we were going to do. So I know other people have much more disappointing things. I was talking to a woman I work with today, and her son was supposed to get married in May, and they had to postpone it a year. They could have gotten married in May or December this year, but they were just like, I don't want to. I wanted a spring wedding, and it's just, this is what they want. And, it's probably hard. I feel so bad for everyone who has to put off their wedding, because I know how much work everyone puts into it and all the time everyone puts into it. So it's kind of sad that a lot of people's weddings are canceled and everything like that. So many functions are canceled, and then people are like, oh, but everyone's going to want to be together eventually, and think how much everyone's going to do all this stuff, and everyone's going to want to do their own stuff. No one's going to want to have to be on a schedule. Everyone's going to has their list of all these things that they're going to want to do, and I don't know. I just can't wait for that day when, I could just not have to think about going to the grocery store and planning out and trying to come up with recipes and then not being able to follow any of the stuff. So I will say I had a really rough day this week. I totally just broke down, and I just couldn't do it. And I was so mad at my husband. I'm like, I can't be positive every day. I go, you have to stop the expectation that I can be happy and positive every day. I'm like, it's just not humanly possible. This is so hard. And I think it's extra hard on me because I'm trying to watch our son and trying to keep things normal. And I'm watching way more TV than I want to with him. And I know it's fine, but there's just so many things that I think about that I wish we could just be doing. And I see his socialization just not going the way I want it to. And I'm nervous about now pulling him out for June, July, and most of August because I don't work those months. So why would I have my son in daycare? So it's hard. It's definitely hard. We're still right now planning to go to Disney World. We have a trip. I have a trip in July and August because I don't know which date will actually work out. And yes, I am using a travel agent. And if you did not use a travel agent when you booked whatever vacation you had, a travel agent should not cost you any money. It should be $0. They should be only getting money based off a commission. So if you need a travel agent, I know no one wants to travel and no one has any desire to travel. But even let's say in a year or two when you do want to travel, I suggest you use a travel agent. And I had Kristen Turner on a few weeks ago. She's a Walt Disney World travel agent. And I will always use her. I don't need her. I know what I need to do. I plan everything on my own. But I can ask her questions. I've had to change our plans so many times since January. I've changed them so many times. I'm now in my third resort that I've changed because I keep changing my mind. And I've changed our dining plan, and I've changed the type of ticket we've had, and I've changed everything. And all I do is I have to email her. She's the one that has to stay on the phone for 2 or 3 hours or 6 or 7 hours at this point to make all these changes. So I really suggest I will put her email in the show notes. because if you are thinking at all about going to Disney, whether or not you need the help or not, this is a way to support someone for $0. There is nothing you need to do for your Disney vacation, or you can do everything and just say, these are the dates I want to book. This is the hotel I want. This is it. And then you can absolutely do everything else. They literally are just in charge of booking it and helping you in any way. And let me tell you, at this time, it is so much easier to have one contact person that I can email and call, as opposed to having to get on the phone with Disney and try and make these changes. So please, $0. It helps. So, oh, my husband's about to interrupt me. Hold on a second. Okay, so, all right, well, that's it. So support your local restaurants and local businesses and travel agents. Please, please, please. Even if you're not going to book till next year, just, this will end eventually. So try and support who you can. So anyways, I hope you have a great week. Oh, my one thing that I love about my son. There's so many things to choose from. Right now, he is in love with bubbles. Bubbles are his life, and he has learned to actually blow the bubbles himself. So that's kind of amazing, and I just love it. And I love how excited he is about bubbles. So, all right, everyone, stay safe, stay inside, or stay home, I should say, and stay away. Social distance yourself the best you can. And good luck if you have to go out for any reason, and just stay safe and do what you can. So have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.